And I don't just mean oncology, because there are oncology CROs or ophthalmology CROs or CNS CROs. CNS is a broad spectrum. Oncology, covers so many different cancers. I mean, targeted areas like retina, like Alzheimer's and related disorders, targeted cancers and things like that. I mean, there are some cancers that have, over 900 clinical trials going on right now. So obviously there are tens of thousands of studies going on across all cancers. So I think a lot of the most exciting, innovative, transformational research and development is happening, as I mentioned, in areas of medicine that historically haven't seen a lot of progress. We've got a lot of mature areas of medicine, cardiology with hypertension, some psychiatric disorders, depression, diabetes, some of the GI conditions, which, have, solid products on the market to help people. But there's a lot of other areas that really haven't been touched yet. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of investment. InFocus obviously is a perfect example of that therapeutic specialty. I would argue that we were out at the forefront of that, coming along back in 2015, when at the time you probably only had about 10 to 12 products in human clinical trials in the retina space. Today you have 106. So that number has grown, nearly tenfold in the last 10 years. The same applies to the number of sponsors. And that ultimately is about investment. People are investing money where they see opportunity. And the opportunity is certainly in specialty conditions. So, when we're highly specialized, what I've realized too is that, we're able to focus, bring proprietary, customized solutions, tools, processes, because you're so heavily focused on a therapeutic area. It's allowed us to be about 200% more efficient than traditional CROs with respect to enrollment, study startup, execution, which ultimately saves a lot of dollars and a lot of time. So we've set some certainly landmark records with regards to enrollment and quality of enrollment.
Very good. So, what is your approach to building and leading high-performing teams? You talked about all of the experienced people that you have. So, with a highly specialized area like retinal research, I would imagine, that you probably have a level of focus on, how to lead the team in a way that's important for people to understand as well.
Sure. I mean, I'd like to say I have, magic wand, but it's a lot of it is feel. And as far as building, a high performing team, a high quality team, ultimately it's really, really critical in my experience to appreciate your teams that lead your projects. Like I said earlier, at the large CRO level, if you have a 20-person team over a large project over the course of, 2 to 3 years, you're lucky if 2 or 3 of the people who started on that project are still on it at the end. That leads to a massive loss of intellectual capital that's been built up on a program, brain drain, as I call it. Many CROs, will push their CRAs, especially their monitors, to a breaking point, having them out on the road 4 or 5 days a week. I think that something that's really important with any company is to establish a strong culture, an open door policy, flexibility, understanding of people, different situations, having empathy. Some of our core employees will travel on up to 200 or more planes a year. That's a stress that you need to really appreciate, understand. People that are sitting down the hall from me in our office routinely and not traveling at that level, they don't really know that stress. So you got to know the different stresses of different staff. And I think that ultimately we work really hard to retain a strong camaraderie amongst our teams. Like I said, the industry average of turnover is probably 50% of staff every 2 years. In many clinical roles, certainly, we average a retention of over 90% of our staff annually. So it's very, very important. And that's ultimately, to me, how you build a high-performing team. You've got to keep good quality, experienced people, retain critical intellectual capital and programs. And that's, again, what allows us to execute things a lot more quickly and efficiently.
Thank you for sharing that. So, what have you found to be the most effective way to merge best practices from different organizations to drive efficiency and productivity in clinical development?
Merging best practices is very, very important, especially in our arena where, again, every protocol, every clinical trial is different, different humans, different drugs, different processes, relatively speaking. So merging ultimately best practices is very important because we learn things on each project that we didn't know before. So most important, I think, is having willing staff. A lot of people historically, you have training wherever you started your career, and you have an assumption usually that that is exactly the way that it needs to be done always. And so having willing staff, people willing to engage, question how things have been historically done, how can we do them better? As I said, we often perceive that the road has been laid before us. There's a hidden book of rules in our industry that we must follow. There are some, guidelines, and we have good clinical practice. We have the Code of Federal Regulations that guides what we do, but those are very limited in terms of the scope of exactly what they tell us to do and how to do it. The rule book actually is very, very small, if you will. And so it's healthy to question, why we're doing what we're doing, the ways that we're doing things. It ultimately leads us to merging of best practices. And again, that takes dialogue, openness amongst teams, and willingness to let your feelings be hurt, opinions shut down. So that's what we do. We encourage people to bring forward ideas.
Very good. So what role do you see innovation playing in overcoming the challenges of trial enrollment and execution, especially in niche therapeutic areas?
Great question, Don. And I hate to disappoint some people out there, maybe some companies, but the key is quite simple. I get asked this all the time. It's not AI. It's not technology. It's not databases. There's no magical pixie dust. We work in, as I said, in a people industry. There's billions of patients out there. The key is having deep intelligence on and relationships with the clinical research sites that do the heavy lifting and decide ultimately to commit to your clinical trial. So I don't really see, some sort of technology necessarily making a big play and overcoming the challenges. It's about building relationships, doing what we're doing. We built this massive real-time intelligence database that archives critical details on over 500 sites globally that tells us and tells our partners who's going to perform well today on your clinical trial, who is going to be challenged. And that's what really drives, that process forward for clinical trial enrollment.
Like you said, it's important to understand, and I love the fact that technology is not always the answer, right? I mean, I certainly leverage technology in my own business for a lot of different things for efficiency and productivity, but at the same time, I'm in a very human business as well, and this level of focus on technology, sometimes people focus too much on it. And somebody was reaching out to me recently and was pushing technology, and I said, look, if you approached your potential clients with how you're going to help them solve problems, you probably do much better and not get rejected so much. So we went back and forth a couple of times on instant messages on, with him asking questions. And I thought it was too funny because it's like, look, at the end of the day, we're all humans, and I'm not a bot. I as much as I love leveraging AI, I also love the human side of interacting.
Mhm. Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean it's amazing. We want to solve everything with AI. I mean, we've had companies come to us recently say, saying they can replace our employees with AI, and maybe they can today. I don't know, but I still think that human interactions are going to be the drivers of innovation, and there certainly is a place, as you mentioned, for AI. So, but it's not everywhere. Yeah.
That's for sure. So looking back on your career, what's been the greatest piece of leadership advice that you've ever received?
Um, it is it's really hard for me, Don, to say there's one piece of advice that I cling on to. I mean, something that I personally preach is, don't tackle a problem without a solution. A lot of times we know that, and especially in business, we might know we might be facing a problem coming up or might have to deal with an issue, a certain point in time. But I always say, don't tackle a problem without a solution. So consider the solution before you engage the problem itself. And then, but things that I've seen from others that just stand out to me, surround yourself, and certainly your teams too, but surround yourself with people that believe in you. There's a lot of naysayers in this world. It is really, really, really easy to find people that will tell you that won't work. That's a bad idea. You can't do that. You can't, I mean, especially business leaders told all the time, your idea is not going to work.